Course in Miracles gives us a really unique kind of way of looking at the world about us and what's going on. We are brought images of what's happening in the world through our televisions and computers and so forth, internet, etc. And we see all kinds of discord. I mean, people attacking one another, verbally or otherwise. And you think, well, how am I to think about this? Why aren't these people doing a better job learning to be nice to each other? It's a, you know, there's a temptation to look at it that way. The Course does not support that kind of way of looking at it, though. And it, like I say, it has a real interesting way of describing that. We've recently heard a lot of, I guess you have, if you read the news, a lot of information about people calling each other names nationally. I mean, you know, call a whole race name, attack a whole race. I don't know why they don't judge that from, you know, people that like to think racially instead of individually. I don't know why they just take the next step and say humanity. Cursed be you if you're a human. Go back to where you came from. Well, actually, that's what we were all trying to do. So if you just broaden it a little, of course, that makes it positive in our understanding, whereas in the other understanding it's not positive. And what is interesting is that the Course says that while we're here, we're under a delusion, and we think we're talking to other people. We're talking to ourselves. We're always interacting with ourselves. The Course says you don't interact with another person. You interact with your projection that you have. You take the other person, get him out of the way. You know, go away. And you put a projection there, and you interact with that. So you're sort of talking to your. Every time somebody calls somebody else a bad name, he's calling himself. He's calling a projection that he has put there a bad name. That projection came from his own guilt. It didn't just pop out of nowhere. The Course says you can only do one of two things. You can either extend love or project guilt, and you're doing that. That's what you're doing all the time. Now, so when I call someone a bad name, in any way, whatever way you choose to do that, I'm calling myself a bad name. It's just I'm not aware of it. I'm not aware of it. But if you look at it from the Course's viewpoint, you can be aware of it, and you can say, boy, that guy gave himself a bad time last night. He just reamed himself out. Almost cursed himself one up and down, you know. He didn't seem to be getting the point of that, but no matter, I can't help that. And so the only thing that you can pray for, I suppose, is that the truth come to this. You know, if I want to pray for someone, I always have a universal prayer. You know, like sometimes you want to pray for someone, you say, well, what exactly should I ask be true for him? Did he get a new car? 3 or 4 more wives or husbands? Well, you know, I don't know about that, but so I don't. And the Course just gives me a simple thing to pray in that way. I just simply I pray that he receive the will of God. Because the Course says the will of God for you is perfect happiness now. So how can we go wrong with that? I don't care who you are or what you're doing. I can pray that you receive the will of God. You know, God's not holding it back. It's available. If you're not receiving it or knowing, it's just because of your own choice. And so you can provide help in that way to someone. Now, you might wonder, how strongly does the Course emphasize the fact that you're interacting only with yourself or describing yourself? I think it's very strong. In some place it says that perception is not a fact, it's a mirror. And that's what that means, you see. If it was a fact, then and I see that you're a really ugly person because you have all these bad characteristics, they're different from my characteristics, that makes it bad, of course. And then I begin attacking, I'm really attacking an image of myself. That's what a mirror does. It gives you an image of yourself. It doesn't tell you what the fact is. The fact is you're not even separate from the person. You hit him, you're hitting yourself. You know, there's no separation that's real. We just have this illusion of separation. And bodies support that, of course, because bodies are physically separate. But the Course emphasizes this a lot in many different ways. At one time, it refers to this idea as the secret lesson of salvation. You're doing it only to yourself. No matter what's happening, you're doing it to yourself. We don't like that a whole lot. Because it just seems like somebody else is doing it, and that lets them off the hook, which we don't want to do probably. And it seems to put yourself on the hook. Well, that's going too far with it, because a hook would be blame, see? And, oh, I was talking to a lady, where was she? I can't remember now, but I can still see her. And she said, well, I shouldn't blame this other person. I guess I'll just have to blame myself. And I said, how about just not blaming at all? She said, oh, no, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, you just make a suggestion. I'm not trying to change her mind necessarily, but I just wanted to give her the idea that maybe it's possible to not blame at all. Well, that just, her mind that idea won't go in. I got to blame somebody. All these weird ideas on which the world is based, and the Course comes up and says there is no world of false ideas like that. You're making it up. It's not. There's no reality in it, and it's through projection. Now, there is also a well-known section in the Course, which I may even read some of it to you, although you've heard it many times. It's called the responsibility for sight. Do you remember that? It's in chapter 21. And it says, I'm going to read you a real, you're responsible for everything you see, is what it says. And there, one time it says that this way, it is impossible that happenings that come to the Son of God were not His choice. It's impossible that anything that happens to you is not your choice. That's an interesting statement. That means, when it says it like that, that means it's a law. Impossible, a law of nature is a law because it's impossible for it not to be satisfied. One law is that you drop something, it falls down, unless other forces are acting on it. That's a law. It's called the law of gravity. You never drop something and watch it go up. You know, it just doesn't occur. It's a law. It's impossible. So this is saying there is a law that says it is impossible for something to come walking into your life that you didn't in some way, that you're not responsible for. In some way you pulled it. You're so powerful. Just think about that. This is a law of power. It is impossible, that's the law, for anything to come to your life that you didn't produce. Now, you might not believe that, that's your choice, of course, but that's what the Course is teaching, that there is a law that says you have that much power. Now, sometimes you pull into your life something that you like, other times you pull into it things you don't like, and we're not saying this pulling is done consciously. Sometimes it's done consciously. You go to the cafeteria and you reach out and get that piece of pie and pull it to you. That's just a conscious choice. But all the other things that you don't do consciously, okay, you've done unconsciously, or sometimes I don't like to say unconsciously because the Course really doesn't just tend to describe it that way. It tends to say it's actually done in your conscious mind, but then you forget it, rather than saying unconsciously. And it describes all sickness this way, because that's another thing that comes upon us unasked. You know, we didn't ask for that. Uninvited. I didn't invite you in. It says, well, actually, you did. But there's something going on in our mind that's called, I call it a semi-conscious decision, because it's a semi because you forget it, but it's conscious because you go through the mechanisms that are used in a conscious decision. When you consciously decide something, particularly if you're not sure about it, you reflect on, you look at it, you say, okay, what will this occur, what will this cause, will I really like this, do I want this, what will it do for me? There's a process there that you go through. So, he's not saying the sickness is unconscious, like you just, oh, I'm here and it happened, I don't, my unconscious, my dumb unconscious mind got me again. It doesn't mean it that way. It means your conscious mind thought about it, decided it wanted, and it can evidently act at a really quick pace that we're not normally aware of. That it can act that fast, and so it acts real fast and convinces you need sickness, and you say, okay, fine, let's be sick, but it only lasted a fraction of a second, and you didn't. I don't know what the smallest time interval for memory is, but we can always, whatever it is, it can be smaller.
Cut it in half.
It's a nanosecond. It can be half. We could say, well, half a nanosecond. It doesn't matter really. So, but it is a short amount of time. And people then will say, well, how? See, sickness is a particularly interesting example because it's one that practically nobody agrees with. They don't agree that they make themselves sick, although it is understood that mental stress plays a role in sickness. Even I think physicians in the medical world appreciate that fact more and more. But this is going rather far beyond that. It's just saying that everything that happens in your life, you pull into your life. That's how much power you have. And if you're like me, you might say, well, I'm not sure I want quite that much power. Can we tune that down a little bit, instead of full on, can we turn to 50%? How about 10% actually? And then you got to ask, well, do you really want other people to be responsible for what comes into your life? That doesn't sound so hot, And so you read the course and you say, well, how about let's just give it to the Holy Spirit? Well, that works fine. That works just fine. So if you're uncomfortable with having so much power, you certainly don't want to give it to other people. Don't go there. You give it to the Holy Spirit, or if you prefer, to Jesus or to God. A being or an entity, a reality that will always work in your best interest. You see, the thing is, one of the reasons we don't like these ideas about being responsible for sight, and that, well, I'm only interacting with myself. Where's the world? If I'm only interacting with myself, where'd the world go? I can't have a world where I'm talking to what's the world? I sit here and I clone myself, put him right there, and we sit and have this conversation. That's the world. Well, it's not much of a world, is it? This is pretty much nothing. I'm talking to myself. And we don't want to give up the world. You love the world in all probability. You may hate it also. It may be a love-hate. But and I would say that slowly and progressively you get to where you love it less and less. But you don't want to go into hating it. You just want to get to the point of it doesn't have anything to offer me. That's all. In other words, as long as you think the world has a lot to offer you, you're saying that you have a lot to offer you because you're just talking to yourself. Now, of course, it's more interesting to talk to yourself by looking at another person than just looking in the mirror, because at least you have the feeling that I'm talking to another person. I'm trying to talk to another person. And occasionally I get a true word in because love is real. It's the only reality that this world has. So every once in a while you see something real and there's a loving communication from you to you. Yeah.
Isn't the bottom line that all this is contingent upon our thoughts? If we can purify our thoughts, then what will come to us is much better.
Well,
I think that's the problem with so many of us is monitoring our thoughts and being vigilant only for the thoughts of God.
Yeah. That's right. That's one of the lessons of the Holy Spirit. Be vigilant only for God and His kingdom, and that's why He says that. And that's exactly true. It's sort of like not. Do you want to be vigilant for red and green lights when you're driving? Well, I think so. And we learn that real easily. And anybody that doesn't learn that is like if you're high or drunk or something, just ignoring red and green lights, there's going to be some crashes. You know, it works very, very poorly, to say the least. And so for our thoughts are the same. I don't know what makes us so laissez-faire attitude that oh, it's just my thought and it's okay, it's fine. It's just a thought. It has no effects. Well, that's not what the Course says. All effects start with thought. So you have an opportunity here to become more vigilant. Just pay attention, particularly as to whether it feels like separation or joining. Because if it feels like a separation thought, it's from the ego and you do not want it. You know, the Course gives us that insight that there are only these two voices in our minds. And that makes it easier to be vigilant. I don't have a whole list of ethical principles I have to check off on to see if it's okay. You know, if it's not loving, it's going to be an attack of some sort. And what does the Course say? If it's not love, it's murder. It just likes to really ram up the language in that way. So our goal is to remember when you see the world it just seems like it's going crazy, you know. Well, the Course checks off on that, by the way. It says we're all insane. When it's going crazy, what the ego is going to say is, oh boy, I can see something here that's performing way below my ethical standards. So I'm going to jack myself up. I am so ethical. Well, he is so unethical. See, that's called specialness. You know, that I'm special good and you're special bad. That's specialness. You know, you're not doing anything. Actually, you're producing guilt because you're listening to the ego. Actually, you're attacking yourself to do that. You're not affecting the other person at all. So it's pointless, and yet there's a pull towards it. That pull comes from the ego, and the ego is effective in that because it knows, and in spite of the fact this world doesn't amount to anything, you love it. It's not that the world is bad. It just doesn't have anything to offer you. And you say, well, I want my answer to be there. I'm going to keep looking there. Well, it's allowed. Keep looking as long as you like. And, you know, then there's this thing, do you want to be right or happy? You know, if you want to keep looking, you're insisting that if you're insisting something is where it's not going to work out for you, you know, because you're not going to find it. And so you go and look here and you don't find it. And the ego says, well, I've got another place. I know it wasn't around that corner, but look at that corner there. It's a little prettier than that one, don't you think? See, there's a little grass. Let's go look around there. And then another one. And then another one. Yes, but I'm not famous yet. I don't want to quit looking. I've got to become famous, or I've got to at least find a job. Then I'll try to be famous. Okay, whichever. Well, what if it's not there? What if it's not there either? Yeah.
There's also, the Course also says there's nothing that, and I cannot remember the exact word, I don't think it used the words happens, but that there's nothing that comes into your life that wasn't intended for your best good. I can't remember exactly how it says that.
Right. Yeah, I remember that too.
But I was thinking about that in conjunction with you're responsible for your sight. And you mentioned that when you said if you turn it over to the Holy Spirit, then the Holy Spirit intends it for only your good.
Right.
But if you're not turning it over to the Holy Spirit consciously or in your awareness, does that statement still stand?
Yeah, the Holy Spirit still intends it for your good. You just haven't given it to Him.
You just haven't placed the...
You haven't placed it in His hand. You placed the keys to the car in the ego's hand, and He's driving. The Holy Spirit is still intending it for your good, but He can't make it very effective for you until you... Well, He can't make it effective for you at all until you agree, because there's no coercion.
You're still learning.
So
Yeah.
you turn your thoughts of someone that you don't like over to the Holy Spirit. Is that what you're saying?
help me see this person as you do.
Okay.
I've said that many times.
I,
Particularly when I first got married, I said about my wife, please help me see Mary Lynn as you do. You are seeing her as evil, selfish, and persecuting Bob,
well,
aren't you?
the only person,
And I never got a yes to that one, you know, never.
the only person I
Yeah,
can
that works, it really does
think of
work.
that I don't like is President Trump.
Then he's your prime teacher.
I guess
He's your greatest teacher at this
He's
point.
your greatest teacher.
As soon as he becomes irrelevant to you, he's no longer your teacher, see? Make him irrelevant to you if you want to really learn what he's trying to teach you, which is you only interact with yourself. You're not interacting with Trump. You think you're interacting with Trump indirectly. Of course, he's not there in person. But you're not. That the Trump you see, or it could be, it doesn't have to be Trump, it could be anybody, it could be your neighbor, is your projection. Remember this little phrase that projection makes perception. And that just means that whatever you perceive out there started in your mind. You're seeing a reflection of your thoughts in the mirror that he presents, and which you didn't know were there.
I
You
try
see?
to ignore him all the time, but people keep talking about him. People keep telling me stuff that he did. I'm like, I don't wanna know.
Well, yeah, he didn't do anything. And as far as he doesn't do anything. In my perception, he doesn't do anything. I do it all. Hey, you see him as negative? That's your negativity.
Mm-hmm.
But in a hidden form, see? So it feels okay, but that's just the ego deceiving you. How much do you want to be deceived? Well, most of us like to be deceived. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird that humans are so love self-deception so greatly? Yes.
It takes one to know one.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the lower version. More commonly known one. Yeah.
I was thinking how wonderful, what a wonderful time we live in. It's quite extraordinary, especially for those who take responsibility for their sake. Because so many things are happening in the world that we have the opportunity to see them as ourselves and to forgive what we see in others as ourselves. So we forgive the sins of our brother as our own sins. And it's the only way home is to see the negativity in the world as something that we can offer the Holy Spirit for correction within ourselves. And so.
Well, the
for-
Course says that we all have entered darkness here, all of us.
Yeah.
And we threw away the perfect, infinite knowledge that God had given us. Well, that's not good enough. I'm leaving that. I'm going to rely on perception and general ignorance, actually, to make my view of the world.
What Norm was saying earlier, I was thinking about that it mentions very clearly that, I guess in chapter 3, where the means and the purpose belong to God. And if we join in His purpose, then the means are provided. And so that if we join in the purpose of forgiving the world and forgiving ourselves, then the world becomes the means for that.
Yeah, this is such a powerful thought and has such far ramifications. If you think about such things, you might look on programs that come on about ancient aliens. Have you ever seen that one? And it opens up a whole nother panorama of possibilities, that you hadn't. You got the world, it's complicated enough, but oh no, that's not all. Now we got a bunch of other worlds, okay, and I wonder how they are, how we're going to interact with them. And then other books present to you other levels of consciousness. There are higher levels, and there are lower levels. And we could explore there. People tell you about going out of their body into an energy body and exploring all kinds of places. There's just all this stuff, in other dimensions, in other countries, in our countries, and no doubt on other worlds. None of it matters. None of it matters. Whatever you perceive is your projection. And if you want to play around in those other worlds,
It just distracts us.
I'm going to be like the encounters of the third kind and go out and jump on a spaceship and go off something. Isn't that the one? Special encounters of a third kind. There was the one where they
Close
went to the
encounters.
mountain and
But, yeah.
and the spaceship came down and they
My favorite
chugged up
movie.
and went up into. Well, that's fine. You can also travel to Minnesota. It doesn't matter.
That could be just as foreign.
Yeah.
Might be. I've never been there. I just don't know. Somebody had a hand on it. Yeah.
So none of it matters.
Well, in the sense that I intended, I'm going to qualify that one. You could probably go
And
to
the
various
reason I
directions.
ask that question is I see something like the Christ, the Buddha, some iconic figure who comes here, and then it matters, and he resurrects. And we're asked to look for the peace in things, the gentle lessons.
That's right.
And
Extend
when we
love.
see something like a Trump, it's like the polar opposite.
But you've got to be proactive.
Right.
You can't just, that's being vigilant. That's a way of being vigilant, about your own thoughts. Well, I'm going to be proactive and put the kind of thought I want there, which would be a thought of that the Holy Spirit would give you. Instead of just sort of slouching down in your chair and just letting whatever hits you, put in your mind the kind of thought you want to have and ask the Holy Spirit to help you do that. And what you want to do is to see that Trump or Joe Blow or Nancy Pelosi or Abraham Lincoln, it doesn't matter who you're thinking about. None of them are doing anything wrong. If you see they're doing anything wrong, it is your seeing that is the problem. You are responsible for your perception. And so you can decide, I'm just tired of projecting guilt on these people and saying, well, this one was real. I'm going to have a scale from 0 to 10 and rate wrongness for everybody. I'm giving you a 5, giving you a 4, and you got an 8.
Yeah, let me be in charge of
This
the
president
rating.
has this, and this leader has that, and that general has this much. And then you're gonna bring all the ratings to God. God, I don't think you're aware of these. I want you to.
And everybody has their own tray of ratings.
Yeah, and make me special by accepting my rating.
Yeah.
And of
I'm
course,
better.
says when you
I
ask
know
for
better.
specialists, God just didn't answer. He didn't say no. He just didn't answer.
It's like,
You,
just sit
yes, there
down.
was another question.
Just sit down.
It would be, in my opinion, and wonderful to have a leader of the company that speaks words of wisdom, not hate and ranting and raving.
That would be Mary
I
Ann.
miss Obama.
How about Mary Ann Williamson?
Here's the
pretty
thing
good.
about this. I understand where that comes from, but I think, and you please feel free to disagree. I don't care. Just my thoughts anyway. They don't mean much to anything. So, unless you happen to can hear the Holy Spirit in it, then they got meaning. But I think that really comes from wanting this world to be. What it really comes from is we want to be in heaven and not this world.
Yeah.
And we are failing in our attempt to make this world into heaven. And we're going to fail again and again. And so, of course, some leaders have a broader vision than others. But as I understand it, no matter how broad their vision is, they're not going to be able to turn this world into heaven. Jesus didn't, he had a pretty broad vision. I don't think he turned it into heaven. In fact, they put him in the ground, actually. That's how much response he got.
But he made a good impact.
He made it very good, long-lasting.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm not writing him off at all.
And we're asked to look at his resurrection too, not the ground.
Yeah, of course. That's exactly right. He did put him in the ground. That was just the body, and that's not who or what he was. And that's what the Course says as well. You're not a body. You're still as God created you. And that's true for Jesus. It's true for all of us. But it is, the world is like an octopus with about 10 trillion arms. And all of them are going at your head. All these octopus arms feeding in this, and they're all saying the world is real and it's not going very good. And I like it better when it's going well instead of when it's going bad, which is very normal, naturally. But the real true answer is there is no world. I am the Son of God. I belong in heaven. so does everybody else. They may or may not know it, they may not even be ready or interested, but it doesn't make any difference. There's not another destination for them. The Course says that ultimately every member of the family of God will return. Mr. Trump does his part beautifully. Abe Lincoln did his part beautifully. You know, Lincoln was really disliked by his own government for most of the war, Civil War. I mean, he barely got reelected in the middle of the Civil War. But when he died, you know, they put his body on a train to take it back to his home state, Illinois, maybe. And that train passed through all these little towns, and there were just people lined up on both sides, paying their respects to this president that they fussed at while the war was going on, because it finally dawned on them, oh, he was really quite a president, you see. That was their feeling. Well, we just have within ourselves the desire to turn this world into heaven and say, God, I've got another heaven. I'm going to bring it up here. It's a little different, but it's not quite fixed yet, but I'm going to get it fixed. And I'm not going to jump off the train and just give up trying. And the Course says, jump off the train. You don't have to change the world.
Don't pretend this is heaven.
Don't pretend
That's your
this is
ego.
heaven. When it's not heaven, just ask, how can I be truly helpful? See? You just, and the Holy Spirit will bring some idea to you to be truly helpful. Another way to say that is stay above the battleground. It is natural for us to admire integrity over non-integrity. It's just, you know, it's just it. Truthfulness over, you know, non-truthfulness. It's natural. A person who's kind over one who's not is natural. Just don't expect that all to take hold universally here. Help it whenever you can, why not? But don't expect it to. The Course says, ain't gonna happen. Well, why not? Let's make it happen. Don't jump, please, just get off the train. The train's not going to happen. It's going in a circle. It's a circular track. It just goes around and around this circular track, and you keep thinking it's going to go somewhere. Oh, but no, it's just circle. That's all it knows how to do.
So, when I'm thinking of someone that I don't like, and Trump does come to my mind also, I try to look at them that they're in fear, and so they act in a way that doesn't seem positive to
Well,
me.
what you're seeing is not him.
Could-
What
well,
you're seeing is not Mr. Trump
right,
or
right,
President
and
Trump
I get there,
or
and
Joe
that's
Trump or whatever.
that's the part where I get there, because I think, oh, well, he's in fear, that's why he's acting that way, as far as this illusion goes in this world that we have. And so then I get there, and then I don't know where to go after that.
Well, we don't really care why he's doing that. I don't care what, well, of course he's not. I mean, you're right, because it's love or fear, and it's
Definitely he's
pretty clear
acting
it's not
in
love.
fear.
But it doesn't matter to me where he's coming. I don't even, you know, like if someone has a mental problem, I mean, they just get upset over something until they got a problem. I don't particularly care where that came from. I just want to get them out of it. And I think that the Holy Spirit looks at that too. In other words, I had let's see, well, my daughter, she was telling about a friend of hers that from early ages had many serious mental problems. I mean, really serious ones. And so she would go to counselors. And what the counselors would do would say, we want to take you back now to your childhood, the first time somebody kicked you, and work with that energy of being kicked or abused or whatever. And they did that for years and years and years. And then she came across, actually Laura introduced her to the thinking of Abraham. And Abraham, which I regard Abraham as consistent with, of course, a different direction, different emphasis, all that, but nevertheless consistent. And he's saying, hey, don't do that. Past is gone. It's gone.
Forget it.
Don't go get the mud that you used. if you drop mud into your, off your shoes or whatever into your living room, you don't sit down and play in it. You know, oh, look at that pretty mud. What you do actually is you clean it up, or you take your shoes off so you don't do any more. And she has taught this woman about her power. Abraham really emphasizes power a lot. And what I'm saying here had to do with power. It is in fact they're the same base. It is impossible for things to come to your life without your being the cause. Well, okay. Let's switch it to a positive thing. Well, I'm going to bring a bunch of positive things in. I have that power, and that's what she does. And she just got to the point where she says, "I don't need you counselors anymore. You stop going." And she got better and better and better. You know, I mean, I'm oversimplifying the story, but don't have time for all the details. I guess it doesn't matter. But in terms of, I used to think that analysis was the answer to all things, and analysis just nails in the problem lots of times. So and it's been a little difficult for me because I have an analytical mind, and that's just natural for me. But I don't see analysis of your problem as benefiting you. If you come to me, Bob, here's my problem, analyze it. No. No, thank you.
But
Let's just leave it.
the history of psychology in our country, for many people and many psychologists, were focusing on the past
Right.
rather than dealing with present.
Yeah. Well,
It's changed.
the world is not heaven. That's what that means. There is no world. It means there's no world that can be made into heaven. It can't become real. I think there's a verse that says if you have the power to make a world, then you have the power to let it go. And you will, and you because you can't see both worlds, that is, this world and the real world at the same time. The real world is just before the door to heaven. You're going to go through that first. So as long as you're looking at this world and trying to make it right with your hammer. See, that anybody pops up and says something wrong, I hit them with a hammer,
Yeah.
Or wrong means just disagree with me. That's what wrong means.
Right. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. Well, you'll be sitting there hitting your hammer while the rest of us are in the real world saying bye.
Yeah.
Or why don't you put down your hammer and come along with us? Oh, I like my hammer. I'm gonna hammer the world into heaven.
I got a vision here.
Yeah, I've got to make sure everybody knows I'm right.
That's right. And it does carry strength. The specialist has a fairly strong appeal to us. And that by the way, wanting to be right is just specialist. If I'm right, you're wrong, so I'm special. Hey, you're not. Too bad. Whatever.
Yeah.
So we are moving towards the real world, but you get to set your pace. Do you want to go fast? Do you want to go slow? We're all going the same place. There's no real difference between us. And it says that as you approach the real world, we will become collectively telepathic. You will know what the thoughts of the other people, and it'll be sharing. You see. The first aspect of the separation, no doubt, was that we separated our minds off from one another, so we have a separate center, and then you got a separate center, and I can't read your thoughts anymore. If we were all telepathic, pretty soon we'd just say, well, it's just actually one mind here.
I feel like some people are more than others.
I'm sure there are. Well, that's what I hear. Yeah. With that thought, that telepathic, or non-telepathic thought, which I'm very telepathic as long as people are using their vocal cords.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you all.
Okay, why don't we join in a circle, have a closing thought?
You might want to just stay where you are. Oh, you're the one that you broke free.
Thank you all for coming today.
You squeeze my hands up.
There we go. Let's close with a phrase that we use every week. I will be healed as I let the Holy Spirit teach me to heal. Together, please.
I will be healed as the Holy Spirit teach me to heal.
Hope you have a great Sunday, a great week, and we hope to see you again soon.
That really threw me a ball there. Substituting 2 words for 1 word or whatever. You Holy Spirit.
That's not
I like it.
simple.
Yes, I like that.
Road's becoming a habit like very
Light bulbs replaced.
I did too. I did too. Yeah.
Well, I decided, I decided it was time this year to wash it. Once a year, you know. Clean it up.
Hey, Selma. Oh, we're in black today.
Down early, there.
I do too. I'm first section. And sometimes I like to see black and white. You got white too, yes.
Take care.
Excuse me.
Good to see you.
I got my phone here. Yeah, essentially. My daughter, well, actually, also my daughter, pointed out that there's a website called WeTransfer. You go to that website, and it said this is, you can do the free transfer or the pay transfer.
Yeah.